What if I told you that you could take 4 very basic chords like this and turn them into a massive, epic metal choir that sounds like this? That's what I'm going to show you how to do today. To demonstrate this, as I don't have a choir on hand, we're going to be using the Ace Studios AI voice app that I made a video about a while back because they have this really cool choir feature. That means that the amount of processing power that we're going to need to make this go fast enough that I don't just like glaze over and forget that I'm making a YouTube video is a lot, which is why today's video is sponsored by MSI and this sick new Stealth A16 AI Plus laptop. More on that later. Let's dive right in, shall we? So here's the clip of the song that we're going to be working with today.
Run home and hold your children tightly. Hail Omega Omicron.
That is, in fact, a cowbell that you heard. This is a song that I wrote on a rather chaotic Roll for Song stream with my buddy Alex last month. It's a little silly lyrically, but I suspect that it will epic up nicely. So the first thing that we have to do is figure out what the chords are that are happening in this song. This part of the song, which is actually the pre-chorus, only has 4 chords. C minor, F minor, G minor, and then G major or like a G dominant 7, and then a pretty simple melody. So the first thing that we have to do is take this and turn it into MIDI and lyrics, right? So that's the first task for the AI, and it's gonna do it very, very quickly. Crazy fast. One of these voices is named Trey. It says hip hop. It's probably not gonna sound right, but how could I resist?
Run home and hold your children tightly.
Whoa! That's a baby maker of a voice right there. The choir typically consists of 4 sections, from high to low, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So what we're gonna do here is get 4 singers, and I'm gonna write a line for each one of them, and then I'm gonna turn each one of those singers into a whole section. Luckily, that is incredibly easy and fun to do in Ace Studio, and also will go very quickly thanks to the ultra-fast processing inside of this laptop. Speaking of the laptop, I wanna take a quick second and talk about this amazing piece of hardware, the Stealth A16 AI Plus laptop from MSI. It's got an AMD Ryzen AI 9 365 processor, 32 gigs of RAM for ultra-fast processing, and a big ol' 1 terabyte SSD internal storage. It's also got a crispy 16-inch 240 Hz display for that buttery smooth feel, and even has built-in Copilot AI assistance. It's rocking an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 for ultra-powerful graphics. You can find out more about this laptop at the link in the description below. Huge thanks to MSI for sponsoring this video. But first we have to write the 4 lines. The easiest way to do that in Ace Studio is to just take the tracks and duplicate them, and then just apply new voices to them. I'm also gonna color code them. So now I've got a track for each one: soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and it already has all of the words and the same melody.
Run home and hold your children tightly. Hail Omega Omicron.
A little more exciting than me just singing it by myself, but boring. Here it is with the track.
Run home and hold your children tightly. Hail Omega Omicron.
It just sounds more dramatic. What we actually want is, of course, harmony, and the way that we're going to achieve that is by considering what I think of as one of the most powerful tools for you to understand when you're writing anything like this, any kind of orchestral arrangements, really any music at all, and that is chord tones. Chord tones, very simple idea. It's literally just the notes that exist in any given chord. For example, if I strum a basic C minor chord, what are the notes that are in here? We've got C, E flat, and G. That's it. It's really only 3 notes, and then they're just sort of repeated on the guitar. Come on, don't just check out because I'm doing a little bit of music theory, all right? You're not gonna have to remember the names of the notes or anything. I just want you to understand the concept. If you're a guitarist, of course, you know a power chord. Power chord is root 5th. All we're doing is adding a note in between the 3rd. So the 3 notes of a basic major or minor triad are just called the root, the 3rd, and the 5th. 1, 3, 5. This idea is going to be the basis for our whole massive epic choir arrangements. At any given moment, we want each of those 3 notes to be heard throughout those 4 voices, which of course also means that one of them will be doubled, but that's okay. Let's start with the soprano. So the first thing that we can do is figure out which of those 3 notes the sopranos are going to be able to hit. Right now, we've got this E flat. The next one up would be G. Let's see how that sounds. Sounds like we're starting to scrape the top of the tower here. The next chord tone higher would be a C. If she can hit that, she's a champ. That's doable. That's very high. Now, if we go higher than that to E flat. Okay, it sounds like she's being choked. Dreadful. Let's take her back down to G for the moment. So what we're gonna start with might seem very, very boring. I'm gonna take all of these notes and make them G. G is the 5th of C minor, so that means that we have the 5th taken care of. We have it covered. We can check that one off. Here's what it sounds like, all G. The alto. Let's try having the altos sing the root, which is C. That works pretty well. I'll do the same and flatten out this whole bit to be all C. So now we have accounted for G, the 5th, C, the root. What's left? The 3rd, which is E flat, of course. And we have 2 voices left. Let's see what it sounds like to give the tenor the 3rd, E flat.
Run home.
So you may have figured this out by now, but if I hit play right now and we hear these 3 voices singing together, each one only singing 1 note, what we're going to hear is a big C minor chord. And that's fine, if a bit boring.
Run home and hold the children tightly.
It's very, very safe and stale. 0 spice. Let's listen to it with the melody.
Run home and hold your children tightly.
Certainly does not suck with the music.
Run home and hold your children tightly.
What we have is basically a pad, right? It's just like holding a string patch, but plus words. More than 90% of the time, I start the bass on the root. So we're gonna start with him just singing C.
Run home and hold your children tightly.
That really fills it out though, doesn't it? Then we're just gonna do the exact same thing for the other 3 chords. And then, because what we'll wind up with is going to be very flat, straightforward, and boring, we're gonna inject the spice into it. Because as they say, who controls the spice controls the galaxy. One thing that you wanna try not to do in this kind of writing is to have huge leaps from one note to the next, because first of all, it's awkward to sing for a person. Something that might be really easy to play on an instrument with a huge leap, right? What was that? Is going to be impossible to sing, or at least difficult. And the larger the leap, the harder it is. You don't have to be no leaps. You just don't want to be leap year William with us jumping all over the place. And fewer really big leaps will give you a really nice, what's called voice leading, where it's very smooth changes between the chords and it doesn't sound awkward. And right here, we've got a very good example of an easy way to do that, right? We're going from C minor to F minor. There's one note that those 2 chords have in common. That's a C. They don't have anything else in common, but they have notes that are close together. For example, C minor has a G, F minor has an A flat. They're a half step apart. Our soprano is singing a G on the C. So to get to another chord tone of the next chord of F minor, all she has to do is go up a half step. So let's take her note for the measure and just put it right on that A flat. That gives us this.
Run home and hold your children tightly. Halo Mega.
Works like a charm. To sum up this idea, literally all I did was I went from one C minor chord tone to an F minor chord tone, and I went to the closest one, because then we get the smoothest transition, the least amount of movement from one to the next. That's it. If we take that same idea to G minor, guess what? G is the closest chord tone. We literally just take it back down to G. So that gives us this for our soprano part. So now I'm just gonna run the same exact concept through all the other 3 voices. The alto is already singing a C, and as I pointed out, C is a common tone between C minor and F minor, which means that note works for both. That means that the altos can be singing the same note, which is C, throughout this entire first 3 measures. Then we get to the G minor chord, and the closest chord tone for the altos from C is just going to be D, because that's the 5th of G. So we just take her up to D. So right here we've got a little bit of a conundrum, right? We have all of the notes filled out except for the tenor part on this last one. But the notes that are missing are B flat and B. And the tenor is the only voice we haven't written for. And the last chord, he was on an F. And for him to get from F to B flat, that's a leap of a 5th downward. That's pretty far. It's not impossible by any means. The fact is that it's going to be very difficult to always have perfect, smooth, stepwise voice leading. It's just not going to happen. So, in this case, the tenors are going to have to kind of bite the bullet and do that large leap, and it'll probably just be fine. It might even be great. The roots are incredibly safe for bass.
Ren omeno the children die the halo mega for macron.
All 4 parts all together.
Ren omeno the children die the halo mega for macron.
Woo! Absolutely does not suck. Like, let's listen to it with everything.
Run home and hold the children by the halo mega for macron.
So then we begin phase 2, which is where we're going to make it interesting. One thing that I really love to do that is incredibly simple and very powerful and gives you just enough spice without going completely outside of the chord into space is to take the 3rd and sort of bump it down to the 2nd and back up, or up to the 4th and then back down. So in our case, the tenor has the 3rd on E flat for this first chord for C minor. Run home. And then you kind of just feel it out. It's just a little bit spicy.
Run home and hold the children tightly.
That tweaks my ear in a very nice way. That's your first and easiest go-to trick. Grab the 3rd and then strategically drop it down to the 2nd to taste. Let's try that same trick on the 2nd chord of F minor. The sopranos have the 3rd on that one. Halo mega. That doesn't suck. Let's see what happens if we take it up to the 4th. Halo mega. Another thing that I will do often is if you've got a big leap like this, you can kind of just fill the gap. You can kind of split the difference, right? We're going to like walk down to this note. So then it's not this big leap. That works really well. We have kind of a similar problem in the bass, which has this huge leap between the C and the F. Let's try walking him on down.
Run home and hold the children tightly, halo. Run home and hold the children tightly, halo, man.
I'm actually going to skip this note and just go straight to the 5th.
Run home and hold the children tightly, halo.
That feels a bit better to me. Let's listen to it all together with the song.
Run home and hold the children tightly, halo, mega.
I think that mostly sounds really good. I think right here we've got a little bit of a problem. This note without the context sounded great. For some reason it sounds weird. With everything else, it doesn't seem to really work. On this F chord, I want to arpeggiate the bass. Halo. And then we still get that nice voice leading because we go up and then back down. And it's a little bit more interesting.
Run home and hold the children tightly, halo, megaphone, macron.
To me, this is a really good, simple, basic arrangement of soprano, alto, tenor, and bass for these 4 chords. Now, it doesn't sound like a big-ass choir because we only have 4 voices total that are singing. But that's where this ultra handy choir feature of Ace Studio comes into play. We have all the notes written. Now we got to make it sound like there's tons and tons of people singing them. So we're going to make each of these notes sung by a whole section rather than just by one person each. So we're going to load it up with a few different voices for each one. It's super easy to do. We just turn on choir mode for each one, and then we grab a few singers that we think will sound good as a choir. We're literally building a choir of voices, but they're just like AI characters, right? Celestia, Valentina. Why do I feel like these would be good altos? I don't know. It's a pretty good alto section. So I've done that throughout the 4 voices here. I've layered 6 different voice models on each soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. So that gives us a 24 voice choir.
Run home and hold your children tightly, halo, megaphone, macron.
Now let's hear it with the track.
Run home and hold your children tightly, halo, megaphone, macron.
That's pretty huge. Remember, here's what it sounded like with no choir.
Run home and hold your children tightly, halo, megaphone, macron.
But with the choir,
Run home and hold your children tightly, halo, megaphone, macron.
I find that to be sufficiently epic. I feel it necessary to point out how much easier this was thanks to this incredibly fast computer. You got to keep in mind that every single time I change something about any one of these tracks, it has to generate a completely new take. And if it didn't do it fast, this would have been an enormous pain in the ass undertaking. But I used this program quite a bit on my old computer, and it did not go nearly this fast. I hope that you guys learned something today about composing big choir parts for your metal songs. I love doing this stuff. If you want to learn more about adding these types of orchestral and choir sounds to your songs, I have a whole course. It's called Making Symphonic Metal with Free VSTs. You can find that link in the description below, right next to the link to where you can get your very own MSI Stealth AI Plus A16 laptop. This thing was incredible for doing this. Thank you so much to MSI for sponsoring this video and sending it over. Stay squishy, and I'll see you real soon.